Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello and welcome to Game Over Calgary, where the Calgary Flames, they go and split the series by losing to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Hello everyone, welcome back to Game Over Calgary. My name's Conrad Krausert, and I am very happy today with Team Tank getting the victory, by the Flames getting this defeat, and with some of the news coming out across social media. But hello, hi, how are you guys doing? And you're probably wondering, Conrad, that was a terrible loss. Why are you this happy? Because I knew it was going to be a terrible loss, and I'm kind of happy that the Flames seem to be getting exposed for what they are. It is what it is. I kind of felt that previous win against the Penguins could have gotten people so full of hopium that this Calgary Flames team would have not sold and pushed us back into the playoffs or as close to it as we can. And I don't think this is a team that can make it past the Colorado Avalanche. And no, I don't even want to continue about it. I want to think more about, obviously, the sign I've got right here. I do it for Gavin sign or whoever the Flames worthy. It's been a tough slog, and as Matt C has said in the chat, I don't know if Dustin Wolf is currently the Calgary Flames' #1 goaltender. He has to be, because you want to think that this is a blip in the radar. But anyways, hey, Martin Pospisil's back in the NHL. Don't you know? Sheesh, not a great one for your Calgary Flames tonight. I'm not gonna try and put any polish on refuse, because boy oh boy, I thought the Calgary Flames struggled mightily in this one today. And I understand Sportsnet is going to continue pumping the Flames can reach the wild card narrative. I heard Kelly Rudy mentioned it a couple of times, but oh boy, a lot of guys that on a team that feels like half of its roster is generated by EA Sports on your 9th year of an expansion save on any one of the EA video games, the Flames found a way to lose. Despite some good underlying numbers potentially, and nice to see White Cloud get his first point as a Flame. But I think this is where the charade of the Flames being anywhere near a playoff contender needs. We'll get to that and more as we go on. Let's start with our customary recap. First period, the Flames trailed 5-11 in shots, and they also allowed a goal to a man who spent most of this year on injured reserve. Of course, it's honestly expected that he'll come in, get a tip right in front of Mackenzie Weegar, who, oh boy, if he is the guy that we're going to be relying on in all situations, as the Flames radio crew announced, we're going to get real bad in all situations. But again, Nazem Kadri, for a guy that's supposed to be this two-way center, is floating around way too much, is covering nobody. Evgeny Malkin gets the tip. Flames down 1-0. And I didn't think the Flames had a lot of jump in this one, to be entirely honest with you. Whether that was, let's look up and down the lineup. When Igor Sharangovich is the guy I noticed most on both sides of the puck, there is a lot of problems with that statement. Sharky is not a competent defender, and I noticed him more than I noticed a lot of other forwards today. And again, we'll go through this whole scoring recap, but just to talk about Nazem Kadri here for a brief moment. Nazem Kadri is tanking his trade value game by game. If Craig Conroy has an offer from the two teams that are kind of rumbling, obviously Colorado has been making it known that Kadri would be welcomed back. Montreal, Or hey, I've heard rumors today that a lot of people are trying to push the narrative that Craig Conroy is going to try and convince the Kings to take Nazem Kadri as their next Anze Kopitar for the next 3 years. If he can do that, I've got some oceanfront property in the middle of Tabor, Alberta to sell you. But anyways, yeah, terrible game for Naz today. But that'll get us through the first period. Only penalty was the Ryan Lomberg ghost hook early on. So nothing really to talk about there. But second period starts, and statistically, probably the best period the Flames played today. I didn't think it really was. Again, Evgeny Malkin runs the Calgary Flames. Good give and go ends up with Igor Chinnikov scoring his 7th of the year. Assist to Tommy Novak and Evgeny Malkin. Just a sick passing play. And understandably, the defender, Uyghur, flows with, Evgeny Malkin, as he probably should. But you also had Martin Pospisil, and then Uyghur can't get forward, get onto Chinnikov. Calamity of errors there. Martin Pospisil's first game. As much as you want to say, oh, but he's been training and getting ready for 9 months since his last NHL game. Yeah, 9 months of not playing an NHL game. I'm sure you're going to be a little rusty on your back check and who you're supposed to be covering. That is an understandable penalty or miss to make that led to a goal. Is it unfortunate? Yes. Is it good to see Martin Pospisil back in any way? Also, the answer, yes. But the Flames got it close, and then you could hear the momentum and the tone of how broadcasters on broadcast were talking about it. A weak shot from the point bounces off the thigh pad of Igor Sharangovich and past Stuart. That was Stuart Skinner. I thought it was Jack Campbell. I'm getting my really bad former Oilers goaltenders mixed up on my brain. Finds a way past Skinner. Flames end the period only down by a score of 2-1. No penalties in the period. Was maybe the best 20 minutes the Flames played. And getting that goal, obviously, 3 seconds before the period ends. Hey, you got the momentum, or do you? First 50 seconds of the period, Brian Rust slots one past Dustin Wolf. They're trying to say, oh, it's Sidney Crosby's goal, and Sid was there, but kind of just waved his stick at this one. Dustin Wolf couldn't get it frozen. Brian Rust gets a goal. Crosby gets his assist to be 8th on away assists or points or whatever. I was watching Penguin Twitter a little bit talk about that. That's one Wolf should add. Sophomore slump, whatever you want to call it. Playing behind a bad NHL team. Who knows? And then it's Tommy Novak who gets it from St. Ivany and kind of just waits and waits and waits. And yeah, Marty might want to forget that one. Not real great defensive coverage. Hopefully he'll learn and improve that. As we said, first NHL game in 9 months actually matters. He had the one preseason game, which smashed his head on the ice. And I guess they never officially declared a concussion, but you're hearing everyone in the media talk about how it is a return from a concussion. So I'm going to call it a concussion return. That's it. That's all she wrote. The Calgary Flames fall 4-1 to a very, very not great Pittsburgh Penguins team who find themselves shockingly high up in the standings, considering all we heard in the preseason was that they were going to move on from Sidney Crosby and learn how to live life as a bad team for a bit. Hey, if you make the playoffs, I don't think you're going to complain. And hey, maybe you can win a Stanley Cup for Stuart Skinner. So that's all the Flames did, and that, as I said, it was not a great game for the Calgary Flames. They looked flat. They looked uninterested. There was maybe, as Anand says, the Pospisil looked okay. As I said, -2. Had something. Sharangovich, Zari, and Gridden were his other 3 players to watch. I don't know. I'm kind of done with a few things from the Calgary Flames and what they do and how they line up. I'm done keeping Michael Backlund stapled to Matt Coronado. I think it's time to free the best wrist shot in the league from backs. Like I don't know. We heard the rumors that Justin Kirkland was going to be out of the lineup. Obviously, the late scratch Jonathan Huberdeau, who I didn't notice because he wasn't on the. That's the best way to notice. Your $10 million player. Lower body injury, if I recall correctly. Very low event, very boring Calgary Flames game. Despite the fact that if you look over at any one of your expected goals generations, Penguins only expected 2.2 and the Flames only expected 1.7. But when Ryan Lomberg is generating your second most expected goals, I don't necessarily know if I believe your model. Anyways, let's head on to period number 2. Because we have to talk about the news of the day, that there's been conversations between the Calgary Flames front office and Nazem Kadri about potentially finding a move for Naz. As Matt C said in chat, I think we missed our window to get a huge value on Kadri. He is still movable, but not for a haul. I would agree. The cost of Kadri is likely to be very, very high, and who's going to want to pay that asking price? And again, Kadri has a contract till, if I get this up, it seems a little bit on me, but let's look at this contract and cap hit and salary status. He still has 3 additional years after this. So let's assume that whoever wants Nazem Kadri doesn't want to pay him the $7 million cap hit. Okay, Flames eat half of that, $3.5 million for the next 3 years. I think that's a pretty good deal for whoever acquires Nazem Kadri. Obviously, you're not going to put a buyout on him. I'm not even going to worry about looking at that. But I don't think Murray Edwards and co. really want to go that route. They don't want to go where they're paying a player $3.5 million to not pay for you and to go win a Stanley Cup for the next. And as much as Nazem Kadri and any of these players, like, look at what Rasmus Anderson said in the pre. He is not going to hinder the Calgary Flames in his attempt to move. But when the Calgary Flames tried to get the best deal they could by sending him to Boston, Rasmus says, I know I said I'm going to do what's best to help this Calgary Flames rosters, but I'm not going to sign a contract extension here, and I'm not going to sign one anywhere. I'm going to go test free agency. That's certainly not helping the Calgary Flames to find their best. So whether Nazem Kadri feels that he is going to do what's best for the Calgary Flames organization just by being off the Calgary Flames organization, who knows? Another guy that conversation is heating up is Blake Coleman, and I think that's probably to a single team located deep in the heart of Texas. Don't mess with Texas. Actually, it's a litter campaign, by the way. We're big and tough and Texan. But I digress. Calgary Flames. It's tough. With Coleman, obviously, I think there's actually a bigger list of teams that want to pick up that contract. And I think that Craig Conroy needs to have learned from his handling of Rasmus Anderson that you get so much more in return and so many better assets if you're not just giving up players for a rental. In the past, rental players for one playoff run were the norm. But now it's want to have that year of control. They want to have that chance to extend the player. They want to have that extra year. If you're going to actually pick up the most assets as someone who is selling on a star player, want to have that extra year. So Blake Coleman, right there. And hey, he's just coming off an injury, so that probably lowers your price a little bit. But he's been having one of the best years of his career, one of his best Flame. And he does have a modified no trade. Or has a no trade clause that ended. So he does have a 10-team no trade. He had a full no trade for the first 3. So he obviously has his list of 10. I don't know if he's been asked to expand that list, similar to what we've heard with Nazem Kadri, who's playing basically I'll consider going almost anywhere. Even the team that I listed as no trade, I've heard he's willing to make that move. Thanks, Naz. That's one thing I'll give you. But it feels like moves need to be made. Does having Martin Pospisil return make any of this any easier? Probably not, because we don't necessarily know what his health is. We didn't see him take a single draw today. They says took a couple and went 50% on the draws. So the fact that Martin Pospisil's back, potentially play center, obviously you have that Conrad, as well as a guy that theoretically can play center. I wish you had Sam Honzek, but he's done for the year. A guy that could potentially come up and center. Do you want to have Justin Kirkland as your third line center and Michael Backlund as your second line center? Even though some people your first line center right now. These are all the overall conversations that you have. If Kadri's going to move, you have less of those conversations. If Coleman moves, because you got lots of wingers. And you got lots of guys that can go in and play the 17 minutes that Blake Coleman was playing. But I think it's going to be a long little bit of time to watch these Calgary Flames for the next however many months we're going to see. Oh, and I forgot I wouldn't change the period, so we've been talking second period for a while. Tech stuff. But yeah, the Calgary Flames, I think, need to start moving some guys. Let's head into period number 3, where I'm going to give my opinions on life without Rasmus Andersson, the return. I could be parroting some of the things Anand said last night, but I think this is actually not as good a return as I initially. So, as we all know, Rasmus Andersson has been traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. 50% retained. Flames get White Cloud, the 2027 first, and a 2028 second that becomes a 2027 second that becomes the 2028 first if Vegas wins the Stanley Cup this year. Of course, Craig Conroy and the team have to know that we currently hold Vegas' overall draft pick. That upgrade from a second to a first really is kind of a, hey, sorry for sewering the pick that you got in the Noah Hannafin trade. We're going to do you a solid because we're Vegas and we care about what you guys do in our division. I hated this trade off the get-go. Sorry for bumping my desk, which bumps you guys. I hated this trade, and I don't think I've really warmed to it. I understand that Vegas was one of very few teams willing to do 6-month playoff rentals. You have to remember this is a team division. And even though Rasmus Andersson said, I'm not going to sign an extension, I think if he goes and wins a Stanley Cup or makes the playoff push with the Vegas Golden Knights, playing alongside Noah Hannafin, he's not going to want to extend to try and, bring home a swack of silverware while making himself individually probably quite wealthy. I don't think there's a chance that the tall Swedish defense says no to that. And I think listening to guys like fellows over at Barnburner, and any number of voices you can hear through X, social media, that that is an unlikely situation. Say he loves Vegas and signs. Then you look at what this trade got you back. I'm not overly fond of it. For people like my father that said, well, the Calgary Flames and Rasmus Andersson were so far off on contract negotiations. What else did he want him to do? Yeah, they were far off on the contract negotiations in the summer too, when the offers were better. You got a full year of Rasmus Andersson. Yeah, you were far off in contract negotiations a year and a half ago, or rather, let's look 12 months ago, when there was a year and a half left on the Rasmus Andersson, where there were lots of options and lots of really, really interested suitors. At the end of the day, you got the best that you could with the situation. But the Calgary Flames front office staff, all the way down, is to blame. Again, I've said it so many times this year. Ownership group is 100% able to manage assets with their individual business. When it comes to the Calgary Flames, whether that's because hands off, two hands on, I'm not in the room where it happens to tell you what to think on it. Or asset management. Yes, you got White Cloud and a guy who, admittedly, 7th round pick, doing pretty good in the NCAA, but at the same time, like, the guy who's a 7th round defenseman, 6'5", he's a right-handed defenseman. My brain is remembering correctly, so he's never gonna get through the lineup unless, for some reason, he decides Aiden Prek isn't as good as he's shown to be. We're gonna just stick him with defensive coaching staffs for the rest of his career. Or Hunter Brustevich doesn't continue to develop, which, hey, I actually think his development has stalled a little bit at the NHL level. I haven't been too in recent games. But it's really complicated. And as Matt C said, all depends on what the Calgary Flames decide to do with White Cloud. Here's my thinking, and probably Craig Conroy's thinking, and who knows. I think that the Dallas Stars still desperately want Blake Coleman, but their biggest need is on that right-handed defense. If you can take a White Cloud and have him eat 19 minutes a night until the playoffs, and then let whoever come back, and of course you have to be salary cap compliant in the playoffs now, allow them to get closer to healthy, still have a guy that you can trust if you go up big, that can eat some minutes to allow your injured players who are probably still going to be hurt to get that little bit of time off the ice. I think it's a very valuable asset. But I think you have to look at what guys like Mike Gould have said online. Is if the Calgary Flames view White Cloud as their Rasmus Andersson minus a lot of offensive upside, or the second coming of Robin Regeer, as I was joking on my personal X, with my "How dare you stand where he once stood," reference to them both playing a similar and both wearing the number 28 for the of red. Like, feels like this is a guy that needs to be stapled Coleman and just shipped off and improve your asset that you're getting out of Dallas, or whomsoever wants to take on Blake Coleman for the rest. There's my 2 cents on the Rasmus Andersson White Cloud trade situation. I don't think I'll be cheering for that extra 1st-round pick. I don't think I'll ever cheer for the Vegas Golden Knights and their goaltending situation to ever win a Stanley Cup. But it is a scenario that we need to consider with the Calgary Flames trade strategy. Overtime. This is where we head and take some of your questions from chat and give them a little bit of a mull through. But as I do that, please go down below the video, hit like, really like to go hit subscribe. If you really, really liked it and want to bring some more friends into the circle, they want to commiserate Team Tank like I do, send them out the link, tell them to give us a watch. Or if they just want somewhere that they're able to rant and chat and just feel as interesting about the Calgary Flames team I do, send over that link. All right, let's head all the way back up to the top to Matt C. Cooley is the best goalie on the Calgary Flames roster right now. I know Wolf is the future, but he's the number 2 right now, and it's Flames play completely different stylistically depending on types. I think that the third pair plays a boatload better, and I know you guys know that I don't think much of Joel Hanley. It's tough. Especially when you held Daniil Miramanov in the NHL, lose Ilya Solovyov for free, who now is a Pittsburgh Penguin as of yesterday, because he was traded for an asset that Colorado Avalanche act. And hey, he could be playing on the left side of that third pair right now for the 9 minutes, or let's double check before I say 9 minutes. How much time on ice did our third pair get today? Correct, 15 minutes for Joel Hanley and Hunter Brustevich. Ilya Solovyov can play 15, 16 minutes. Well, but we decided to let him go for nothing. Tell me when that stops being a case for the Calgary Flames. Matthew Lombardi. There's been so many guys that this Flames organization has just let walk that are serviceable NHL players for a vast number of years. Or whether we give up on them too early, like Martin St. Louis. Like, there's just so much, folks. It's the same song and dance. Another one from Matt C. Sharky's going to end up with 17 to 20 goals, and on paper, it'll look like a solid season. But I think you need to look in that games played column, because I think people will notice that, oh, did he get injured that year? No, he was a healthy scratch for vast swaths of this, especially early on. You lose Anderson, you lose games, great success. Hey, you're on Team Tank like me, that's what you want. Hey, as I said, I'd like them to be a little bit closer and a little bit more of a hockey game. This game was first ever Flames game for Anand was back on October 25th, 2022. Flames won 4-1, and it was a loss against the Penguins in the Saddledome. If we want to go back to my first game, what I'm going to have to assume from what my parents have told me. So I'm just looking up the game schedule for this season. I'm just going to do some like basic math. My family has told me that I went to a game a week or so after my birthday. They never told me the teams, but I think based on what's in my baby book, because it was a blowout, so my parents didn't feel bad that they got to leave early. So I'm guessing it was the February 10th game against the San Jose Sharks. The Calgary Flames won 13-1. That's what I'm going to go with. How does that sound to you guys? But yeah, guys like Mantha and Vladar left for nothing. Who knows? Maybe just having Anthony Mantha on your roster with Jonathan Huberdeau is a way for him to play like an actual hockey player. Let's continue to look down here. Wonder if Anderson's trade is getting the vibes down in the locker room. Team looks disconnected. I think if the team doesn't look disconnected, they just look bad. And I think that they will continue to look bad until the age of Aquarius. Because I think that until next year, January, we'll probably still look bad. And I even think that will be the case if we acquire Gavin McKenna. I don't think our culture is all that good in the Calgary Flames. Yeah. We'll continue to watch and see how this Flames team look. And we'll continue to probably have to check how the vibes are. Hey, we have Mackenzie Weegar. Aren't the vibes always supposed to be immaculate? Talked about that. A lot of people saying that Gridden might have been the only good thing and good positive for the Flames tonight. Hey, interesting. I think he's young and energetic and still playing for Ryan Huska, who will ask him to back check for 200 feet instead of being the sniper that he has been for his entire career. Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of end up on this. We create a list of needs for this roster. I think the bottom, very last on that list would be older right shot D. I can't remember the exact stats, but if you look back through the entire history of Craig Conroy back trades, when he was actually the full-time general manager of the Calgary Flame squad, I think there's only been 5 forwards brought in, and that includes Frost and Farabee, who were brought in the same trade. I will say I've loved the drafts that Craig Conroy has put on and brought about. Not as fond of his trade record as of recent. We'll look into that. We'll talk a little bit more as this season continues rolling and spiraling downhill. But gonna check in our and see who's actually doing the next game. I think yes, it is me. I will be doing Friday. The Capitals come to town. I am unavailable to do the one on the 25th because I will be in attendance as the Ducks fly into town. So that's your next 2 episodes as the Calgary Flames continue their home streak before they head off down to San Jose. So thank you everyone for tuning in and watching this one. As I said, it will be me again Friday. It's another late home puck drop, 7 p.m. puck drop, so that means 9:45 start approximately for this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is once again Krausert. Thank you so much for all of us here. Network. Be back. A couple of days.